Hi everyone, I'm Margie O'Brien. This is another Capital Spotlight. Legalizing marijuana. Will it happen in Rhode Island? That's what we're talking to Senator Joshua Miller about. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So this has been your project for almost 5 years now?
Yeah, I've kind of inherited from other legislators, but I'm happy to take on the helm of being the prime sponsor of this bill.
So you have a bill pending right now that would legalize marijuana. We would be the first in New England to have this.
Yeah, we'll be the first if we pass it this year. I think that's one of the reasons it has momentum to be done this year, is because Vermont has a bill that's going through their legislature that's endorsed by their governor. Massachusetts has qualified for a ballot question relating to legalizing marijuana. So we'll be in the position, much like gambling, where if we don't get ahead of this game, whether your rationale or reason for supporting this bill is financial or otherwise, you're going to lose a financial component to this if you're not the first in the region.
Let's talk about some of the benefits for being number one. We look to other states. Colorado is always the example that people use. There are financial benefits. They are seeing a definite increase in revenue from this.
The revenue from Colorado is huge, and it's only one component of why we should consider legalizing. There are many components about that make good reasons for passing legalizing marijuana, whether it's protecting young people from drug dealers that would just as soon sell your son or daughter opiates at the same time they're selling a marijuana, whether you're considered incarceration issues and that, or you support it like the NAACP because it affects a minority community much more than the rest of the state. So there are varied reasons, but the thing that's become urgent is to fully capitalize on the revenue component of it. We want to be first in the region because the Northeast is going to be a major marketplace.
Let's talk a little bit about the details of your bill. Give me an idea of what type of marijuana you could have, the amount of marijuana you could have before you would be crossing that line.
It's still a 1 ounce threshold like the decrim. The main component of it is that we carefully watch and observe what has happened in Colorado and Washington, and we have an uptick to how much marijuana is available on the retail marketplace for recreation. And the way we do that is by starting with the current compassion centers, allowing the expansion of compassion centers, and then over a time period, about 15 months, we start considering retail licenses for retail locations, up to 40. And what's careful and considerate about that is we have what we can borrow as a regulatory model from states that have already done it, and we go slow enough to make it work for Rhode Island versus where it's been legalized in the West.
And as far as going slow, being methodical to make it right, we do have the time before another state becomes number one. For instance, if Massachusetts puts it out to their voters, that doesn't happen until November. So you have time left in this session to make it happen.
You have time, but there is a certain amount of urgency. Vermont will probably happen very quickly. Massachusetts is a year-round legislature, so as soon as the ballot question was voted upon, and every indication is that it would be voted for, you would quickly have legislation put forward in Massachusetts. So I think it's important to get this work done this session.
Now, some supporters say that by legalizing this, the small amounts, you would allow law enforcement to focus on the bigger problems, the opioids on the street. Is that also one of your arguments?
That's one of my main priorities. I was a member of the Governor's Commission on Overdose, and I wanted to serve on that because as chair of the Health Commission, a lot of our legislation is designed on preventing accidental deaths, getting treatment to addicts rather than incarcerating them. And also we have an effort that deals with the highly inebriated and how to best take care of people that have conditions, whether they be addictions or otherwise, or other chronic problems on the street level for crime and for how we take care of people rather than incarcerating them. These are all efforts that would benefit towards redirecting what law enforcement does and what healthcare does towards things that actually have a major health and economic impact as a detriment in our society, whereas marijuana still has not one single fatality, even in the legal states. And so we can refocus law enforcement and other revenue and priority needs where they are best used.
Now, Senator Miller, the critics would say that marijuana is the gateway drug leading to future drug use. And then also what some of the argument coming out of Colorado has been is that there are social issues that go along with this. Have you taken those into consideration with your legislation this year?
Actually, we have. In our legislation, 30% of the revenue from the recreational sale of marijuana goes to prevention and treatment, so that we take care of that as part of the revenue. So there will be more resources to handle the negative impacts, much more than like with our expansion of gambling. Expansion of gambling has a 1% of revenue from gambling that goes to those who are chronic gamblers and to get treatment for those who are chronic gamblers. We have 30%. We take the problem that comes with addiction and drugs overall throughout society and actually recognize that and put resources towards it.
And how about the argument about marijuana being the gateway drug? It's
been dismissed in all academia and all law enforcement. Anything that people have looked at that is seriously been considered or researched, that's just not the case.
All right, thank you so much for joining me on this issue. As we said, there is a time frame here of utmost concern. Yep. Rhode Island is hoping, if it does pass this year, to be the first state in New England to have legalized marijuana on the books. I'm Margie O'Brien. This has been another Capitol Spotlight.